What's going on YouTube? It's your boy Corruption back again. You didn't ask for it, but here it is. It's the next installment of the boss guys that I've been doing. I'm making some progress, but still, like I said, not a whole lot that I've been wanting to get through. But so far, I've gotten, right now, the Flexile Sentry, which is this video. And I've also kind of backtracked and found the old Dragon Slayer, who looks very, very familiar from the original Dark Souls game. But let's jump into it with the Flexile Sentry. The Flexile Sentry is the boss for the No Man's Wharf section of the game, and it is a very interesting boss as it's basically two torsos sewn together back to back on one pair of legs. Now, one thing that I'll try and let you guys know first thing, because I didn't realize it until like 4 or 5 times after fighting this guy. Maybe not that long, I think maybe on the 3rd try that I kind of realized that something was different as time progressed in the battle. And that is that the battle is basically a timed battle, which I didn't really fully understand at the beginning. I went into the battle, I got ready, I did my attacks, and I just wasn't paying attention to the water level. As you might have guessed from what I just said, the water level within this area will rise, and as the water rises, you will lose mobility. And mobility is pretty key to trying to stay alive in this battle. It's easier to take on the dual club wielding half of the torso than it is the dual scimitars. The dual swords, just the attacks are a little bit faster, and if you're not prepared for it with a decent shield, it can tear through you, as if I recall right, it does do bleed damage. Now, of course, the dual clubs will do more damage to your stamina, so it's not advised to try to eat too many shots from him, but if necessary, you can at least absorb a hit and hopefully roll dodge out of the way. Now, another thing to note, with the water level rising, the boss will also, well, he appears to get quicker with the water level rising, and will start to do some devastating attacks once that water level gets to about waist deep and you can no longer effectively move as quickly as you were at the beginning of the battle. So the tactic for this fight is to basically bait the attack from the club-wielding torso and go in for a counterattack of your own, 1 or 2 hits if you can get them in. Especially if you got a faster weapon for a dexterity build, possibly you can get a couple more hits in. But get your attacks in and try to remember the patterns of some of the attacks that this boss does. It's kind of tricky, as sometimes he would swing once, he would swing twice. He goes up to a 4-hit combo, but it's kind of hard to tell which combo setting he's going to go into. I still never really figured that out too well. I just kind of always expected and anticipated the 3-hit combo, which he was the normal that he would do. So if you go into it thinking about the 3-hit, you may end up missing a few opportunities to get damage in, as I've done here in this video. He did 1 or 2 attacks, and I was still waiting for the 3rd one to go, and by the time that I realized it wasn't going to happen, it was a little too late, so I just had to wait for the next opportunity. But as long as you're getting your attacks in quickly, you shouldn't have too much of an issue with this boss. As I went into this blind, I wasn't sure what to expect. I played it cautiously. I was just kind of feeling the boss out, and then bam, the water level rose, and I was effectively dead in the water. So make sure that you're at least trying to plan on making this a quick battle. Otherwise, it could get a little bit trickier once the water level has risen to your waist level. And I'm not 100% sure how far this water level will rise exactly. It always got to about waist level on my character, and by that time I was pretty well dead, due to the fact that I could no longer dodge this boss as effectively as I had been doing. But for most of the fight, you will see that I took on the club-wielding half of the boss, as I stated. But there are times that I have gotten the sword-wielding part, and it's still not that bad. It's still a very viable option to battle this boss, especially if it's what you feel is better for your shield type, or if you're comfortable dodging the swords better than you are the clubs, then by all means attempt it. Just be careful. Like I said, I preferred the clubs because of the slower attack animations that this boss did, and it seemed that the recovery time was a little bit longer too for the boss when he did the clubs. You do have to be mindful if there is an attack that the boss does. If he's on the club side, sometimes the boss will kind of like do a scorpion attack where the swords will come over the head of the club half of the boss. Man, this is getting kind of complicated trying to figure out this boss. But generally there are 2 to 3 hit combos. I've seen up to a 4-hit combo that the boss will perform. they're not usually too bad, club or sword side. It's not until, like I said, when the water level rises above about waist level, then the boss will do a kind of hurricane typhoon BS attack where both the swords and clubs are kind of trying to hit you at the same time. And I think it's almost a 5-hit combo. So once the water level starts to rise about that high, you do need to be mindful that the boss will get quicker on his feet. Also, another good tidbit to know about this boss is that I seem to notice that the club side usually does overhead attacks more so than he does a sweeping motion. So it should be very relatively easy to dodge his attacks as long as you gauge his attacks and watch for the overhead swings as opposed to when he goes for the two-handed arc. This kind of goes well for the sword half too, but I noticed that it does more of a sweeping motion than it does thrust. But it does have the 3-hit combo where it does do the sweeping motion, and on the 3rd hit it will do a thrust that gives it pretty decent range, and I did die to that once, or possibly twice. I gave up counting after how many times I died on this guy. Be mindful for that attack and the range that it deals, and if you need to, dancing around that center pole really does help, especially if you need to pop a healing item. It's really handy to put the center pole between you and the boss, as the boss will try to get an actual direct line of sight and jump from left to right, trying to get you back into open sight, because it does realize that, hey, there's something obstructing my way. But that gives you enough time to pop an Estus Flask, or if you're using the life gems to continually move around, that's also a good deal. But just be mindful of your surroundings on that as well. As anything else, the arena is pretty bland. It's just the open area with the one pole in the center, but that water level rising is the main thing. It's very subtle. I didn't notice it for the first 2 or 3 times I played until I just realized that at a certain point within the battle I was just no longer moving as well as I had been. So that's about the big thing that's going to cause you any problems in this fight. Again, hit and run tactics, and you should be fine. Anyways, this is your boy Corruption. I'm out. Take care.